All right, so we've already reviewed about how to write a linear equation, just a linear equation, no restrictions, no nothing. So today we're going to apply that to writing a piecewise function, okay? So the only extra step we're going to take is learning how to write your domains, okay? So we're still going to do the same thing. Now, your y-intercept is not going to be a little bit more tricky, but sometimes you might have to do a little extra work to get that y-intercept, okay? So follow me. All right, so first thing we have to do is write our f of x in our piecewise format, okay? So we're going to do equation 1, which is right here, okay? So yesterday we learned we have to get the slope. The slope is where you count the rise over the run between 2 points, and you go from left to right. If you go up, it's positive. If you go down, it's negative. So I have a point here, and I have a point here. And if you look, I rise 1 and ran 1. So my slope is a positive 1. And then we put the x with it. Y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. It crosses the y-axis at positive 1, so we're going to say plus 1. Okay? Second equation is down here. Okay? The second equation is right here. All right, get its slope. There's a point here and there's a point here, but you got to go left to right. And when I go left to right, I go down 1 and over 1. So that is a negative 1 with the x. Okay? Now, this one doesn't cross the y-intercept, but you're going to use your slope to make it cross the y-intercept. Okay? So my slope is 1 over 1. So I go up 1, over 1. Bam. Hit the y-intercept right there. And what is that y value right there? 0. So we're going to say plus 0. Now, the domains. Your domains are what x values is this graph in between. So I'm going to use a highlighter. I'm going to erase this stuff right here, okay? So a highlighter, what I do is I highlight my graph. So I'm going to highlight this first graph, and I highlight the x-axis with it. So I highlight until I have no more graph. The graph stops there. So what x values did I highlight? I highlighted negative 4 to positive 1. Negative 4 to positive 1. My x's are in between it. That is a closed dot, so it's less than or equal to. Closed dot, less than equal to. A sandwich will always be that way. Okay, you're either going to have a sandwich or you're going to have a single inequality, okay? Anytime you're between two numbers, you use the less thans, all right? Next one, here I go. I'm going to highlight this one. I'm going to use a different color, okay? When I highlight this one, I'm highlighting the x values between 1 and 3. You see that? 1 and 3. So 1 and 3, my x's are in between. Open dot means just a less than. Closed dot means a less than or equal to. And that's it. Okay? Let's do another one. All right, number 2. So I want you to see the difference between number 2. Okay, so we do our setup. All right, Delta Math includes this setup, so you don't have to worry about it, okay? Now, if you look, these have arrows where these didn't, okay? So when there's no arrows, you use what we call a sandwich inequality, or what I call a sandwich inequality, okay? Here, you're not going to have the sandwich, okay? But let's write our lines. Now, whenever you have a straight line, you see this straight line right here? That horizontal straight line, it's just the number that it's at. So it's at 1, so it is just 1. It is called a constant function, okay? And a constant function is just what y value is it flatlined at. It's flatlined at 1, so it's just a 1, okay? All right, next one, number 2, I need to get my slope first. So we're going to do our slope, so you pick 2 points. 1 point's here, 1 point's here. And if you look, I went up 1, so that's positive, over 1. So it's going to be 1x. It crosses at 0, so it's going to be plus 0, okay? Now we have to do our domain, okay? That's the new part, is the domain. So I'm going to erase this. So I'm going to highlight everything. So if you look, I start at negative 2, and what is happening to my x's? My x's are getting smaller, aren't they? So my x's are getting smaller than negative 2. My x's are getting smaller than negative 2. And it's a closed dot, so we're going to add the equal to. Now, do you notice that this arrowhead is pointing the same way as this arrowhead. Okay? Your arrowheads should match your graph if there are arrows. Okay? All right. Next one. I'm going to highlight it. So I start at -2. What's happening to my x's here with -2? They're getting bigger, aren't they? So my x's are getting bigger than -2. My x's are getting bigger than -2. It is an open dot, so we leave it alone. And that's your answer. Okay? All right, let's go to the next one. Here's the next one. Okay? So this one, we're going to do the same. All right, so we're going to up it to 3 this time. Okay? Same thing. Now, if you look, pay attention to how it's scaled. It's scaled in 2s. So this is actually 1. That's -3. This is 1. This 3 and 5. This is -1. This is -3. That's -1. And that is, +1, that's 3. Okay, so just make sure you pay attention to the scales. Okay, now start with the first graph. Okay, now you got a point right here, and we're going to use this point right here. Now left to right. So if you look, I go up 1, 2, and over 1. So I went up 2 over 1. So that's going to be 2 over 1, which you can just say 2. Okay. This one does not cross the y-intercept, but I can make it by still continuing my 2 over 1. So I'm going to go up 1, 2 over 1. It hits right there at 0, so we're going to say plus 0. Okay? Next one is a flat line. A flat line is just a number, and it's going to be at 1, so it's just the number 1. The third equation, let's get its slope. You got a point right here, and you got a point right here. Let's use this one. There's a point right there. Okay, your Delta Math ones are better. It's just hard to find ones on the internet sometimes. So if you look, this one goes up 1 over 1. So that is 1 over 1 x. It does not cross the y-intercept, but we can go backwards by using our slope and going down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, and it would cross at -1. Okay? All right, let's get our domains. I'm going to erase this. Okay? Trying to leave the extra tick marks here for you guys. All right, so let's get our highlighter. Okay? So if you look, let's do different colors so we can tell the difference. This first graph, it's got an arrow. It starts at -1, and what's happening to my x's after -1? They're getting smaller. So that means my x's are smaller than -1. It's an open dot, so we leave it alone. Okay? Next one. Next one is going to be this straight line. And if you look here, there are no arrows, so it's a sandwich. When there are no arrows, there are 2 numbers. Okay? It is sandwiched between -1 and +1. So my x's here are between -1 and +1. It's always smallest number to biggest number. Remember, it's less than when you have a sandwich. So sandwich ones are always less than. Okay? Now, first one is a closed dot, so it gets a bar. The second one is open, so we leave it alone. Okay? So an open dot, is a less than or equal to a greater than or equal to. A closed dot, no, I'm sorry, open dot is just less than or greater than. A closed dot is going to be your less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. Okay? All right, so now let's do the last section. The last section skips over, and it starts at 2, and what's happening to my x's? They're getting bigger. So my x's are getting bigger than 2. It's closed, so I give it a bar. Now, I do want you to know that you can clean this up. Let's clean. I just wanted to show you that you can simplify some of this. 2 over 1, what's 2 over 1? 2 divided by 1 is 2. So we can really just say 2x. Do I have to put the plus 0? No. So we're just going to say 2x, and my x's are less than -1. 1, you can't simplify that any more than what it is. 1 over 1, what's 1 over 1? 1. So that's 1x minus 1. Okay, so you can simplify it like that, but that's it. All right, so that's as much as you can simplify it on that one, okay? But I think Delta Math would take it up there, but if you can simplify it when you can, all right? All right, let's do another one. Where's it at? Where's it at? I think it's the last one. No, we got 2 more. Let's move this one up. We scrolled a lot for that one. All right, now, this one is missing its arrows, so we're just going to draw the arrows, okay? That one has an arrow, and that one has an arrow, okay? Let's make this one red so it looks like it's supposed to be there. All right, there you go. All right, so now let's do some rainbow in our life. So f of x, it's a cool toned rainbow. You know, your cool colors. All right, here we go. First one, the first one's a straight line. Now you see how it's in the middle. I don't like this one because of the scaling. There's no numbers. We're going to skip that one. Okay. It's really hard to find piecewise graphs online, and I didn't have time to make some. But we're going to do a Delta Math review too, or a Delta Math video, so you'll get more examples there too. Okay, so this is just a little icing on the cake. Okay, so we're going to do our f of x. All right, so we got one graph right here. It's a horizontal line at -2, so we just write -2. Okay? Second graph. Now, the biggest mistake I see is people missing their positive versus negative slope. If you always stick to reading a graph left to right, then you should be okay. Okay? So I have a point here, and I have a point here. I went down 1 over 1. So that is -1 over 1. X. It crossed the y-axis at 4, so we're going to say plus 4. Okay? Next one, I got a point here and a point here. I went up 1 over 1, so that's positive 1 over 1. And it crossed at 0, so we say plus 0. Okay? Now, I can clean these up before I do the domains. Let's do that. Let's clean it up. So let's clean it up. -2, you can't clean up anymore. That's it. -1 over 1 is just -1x or -x, whichever one you want to do. 1 over 1 is 1x, and we don't need the plus 0. Okay? All right. So let's do the domains. So I'm going to erase this. Okay? So let's color. Starting at -3, what's happening to my x's? They're getting smaller. So my x's are getting smaller than -3. It's a closed dot, so it's a bar. Okay? All right. Hey, girl. Oh. All right. So, sorry, I had a guest. So the next one, if you look, there's no arrows on the next one, right? So it's between 2 numbers. So this graph's between -3 and 0. So it's between -3 and 0. And remember, it's less than. Open dot, so we leave it alone. Okay? Next one, let's do some yellow. So this one, it starts at 0, and what's happening to my x's? They're getting smaller, or bigger. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. These x's are getting, oh look, it makes it darker when you color over it. Your x's are getting bigger here, okay? So my x's are getting bigger than 0. It's a closed dot, so we put a bar. And that's your answer. Okay? So I'm going to make a Delta Math video too. I'm going to probably do about 3 examples with it. So if you need extra work or you want to know how to type stuff into Delta Math, just go to that video. All right, guys?